Hey everyone, I'm back with another June character deep dive, and today, to celebrate Pride Month, we're going to take a look at Kitty Pryde. You see the connection right there. The Pride Month is literally in her name. This is my girlfriend pointed this out to me. So we had to include Kitty Pryde during Pride Month. If you watched my Iceman video yesterday, Kitty Pryde shares a lot in common with Iceman. Essentially, she had the astonishing X-Men team. I'll go here, I'll show you what they look like in case you didn't watch the Iceman video. Like, come on guys, you didn't watch the Iceman video. But this is the team. Used to be a raid team. It's been replaced by Death Seed, which was then replaced by the Extreme X-Men. So these characters are extremely outdated. And she's really interesting because Kitty Pryde, you take a look at her kit, it's really not that bad. You know, I just said yesterday that I was like, I don't like Kitty Pryde's kit. And I was looking at it today, I was like, man, like this does more than I remember. And I was like, well, maybe it's her stats that are bad. Maybe that's why I don't feel she's that impactful. And like, no, her stats are pretty good. Like she's in the hundreds, low hundreds, double digits in a couple of stats in terms of ranking. So she has pretty competent stats. So, you know, where is this issue arising with Kitty Pryde? We're going to take a look at that today. I think, honestly, spoiler alert, I think the passive is the big problem. I think they can be more intentional with how they implement Kitty Pryde's mechanics to kind of give this evade to her team. She's not too different from a character like Tigra, who is a protector but works in a kind of the opposite way, where instead of putting taunt on themselves, Kitty Pryde works by applying evade to the team. But like she doesn't really do that good of a job of doing that, and like she's just there. Like Kitty Pryde just kind of, I never see a Kitty Pryde I'm like, oh my gosh, like Kitty Pryde, like no, what are we gonna do? And I don't ever put her on teams or anything like that. I think she's just okay, you know. I think she lacks any like big impactful reason for why you'd want to put her on a team. She just has average utility, you know, a lot of decent skills, but nothing where it's like, okay, like we got to give one of the 5 spots to Kitty Pryde. So let's take a look at her skills. So let's start with the passive here. So again, really good stuff. And one thing I want to praise here is there is actually a lot of X-Men synergy as a whole. There's only a couple of moments where they mention astonishing X-Men specifically, and that's kind of out-of-date stuff that doesn't apply, like it's for raids, so who cares? They're not being used for raids. One of the problems with Kitty Pryde is why I think she doesn't have utility is because some of her kit was... There are aspects of her kit that were put in to give her consistency in raids, and now that they have tried to pivot her to more of a PvP oriented character, that doesn't necessarily transfer because it's like some long form type of strength instead of some short term, you know, PvP battle type of strength. So anyways, really good first line of the passive. On turn, apply defense up to the 2 most injured X-Men allies. You know, good. That's some protector stuff right there. Right here, this line, this is really the big problem with her passive. We're going to come back to this. On enemy turn, and this is so confusing to read. It makes sense because originally she was in raids. She'd apply evade to the most injured astonishing X-Men ally. Then she got reworked now, so she's in War and Crucible. Now she has a 20% chance to apply evade to the most injured X-Men ally. But like, if you're a new player looking at this, like how confusing is that? That in 2 modes she does this specific thing, but in the 3rd mode, like she does this other thing. And if you're using her on none of these 3 modes, then she does nothing. You know, like that's just so confusing that she has 3 different ways that her passive acts within this game. Another good part of her passive right here, on enemy miss or X-Men ally dodge, heal the most injured X-Men ally for 10% of Kitty Pryde's max health, which is good because Kitty Pryde has a lot of max health and she's giving out evades. So conceptually, that's really good. She gains 30% dodge chance. This is really good. I also like that when she's below 50% max health, she gets stealth for 2 turns. I think this is kind of a very fun way to implement her gimmick of kind of phasing through things. So like when she takes a lot of damage, like she's phasing through everything now, and she kind of steps out of the fight for a little bit. One thing that was really interesting is when Kitty Pryde first released in the game, people were actually really mad about how she looked. If you watch some of the gameplay, that's going to be like right up here, you will see that when Kitty Pryde teleports through the ground, there's kind of like, it almost looks like a portal's appearing, and everyone was like, what the heck? Like, she doesn't do portals. Like, she phases through the wall. Like, this, you know, I can't believe this. Like, this is inaccurate. I never cared. I think it looks fine. I think it's just, if Kitty Pryde just phased through the ground and there was no visual effects, like if they just kind of made her model a little transparent and she phased through the ground, I think it would be confusing. Like I think it would look like the game's glitching out. So they added these extra visual effects of like the purple portal to kind of make it clear, okay, like she is disappearing through the floor. I really think it would look bad. I mean, you know, these developers are smart people. I assume they tried it out. They would not have made these visual effects for giggles, you know. So I imagine they tried it out originally, and it's just like, ooh, like that looked really bad. So they added the visual effects. But anyways, that was like a big problem. People were complaining a lot about that way back in the day. We're looking like 4 or 5 years ago. Looking at her basic attack, though, good. This is a good basic attack. She's attacking the primary target with 300% damage and clearing 2 positive effects. Clearing 2 positive effects, that is awesome. She's applying speed up to Colossus and then another X-Men ally. So this is good. She's applying some speed to the team. I like the thematic stuff here where if Colossus is an ally, she gains more damage. I love that. A little bit of theming right there. And like, this is actually some theming that makes sense. You know, like with Starbrand and Black Panther, like One Millennium, like, when are you ever going to use those guys on the same team? Like, let's be real, you know? Or like, I think Hawkeye has some synergy in like Quicksilver's kit, like, but this is like actually some legitimate synergy. These are 2 X-Men, and like it would actually be quite likely that you would see Kitty Pryde and Colossus on the same team. So I think that's cool. And then extra focus to make sure she's clearing those positive effects. This attack is also pretty good, but I think some of this is kind of like built around raids. So she's attacking all enemies plus applying offense down. So kind of she's doing that protector role where the enemy team is dealing less damage, thereby she is protecting her team. This part of the skill, not so useful. She'll flip taunt to defense down. You know, it's like this was built for raids. This was built so they could get around the tanks, take out the glass cannons. In the PvP setting, first off, I don't think she has enough focus to consistently land this against the more problematic tanks. And even then, like that's just not a big problem a lot of the time. Like if we look, I mean, really the only time you run into that issue is Miss Marvel, maybe Black Knight, but like really I don't need the taunt to be flipped. Like we just need to clear effects, you know, like our basic attack would work fine for this. Like this is a very specific, only if they have taunt, we're going to flip it to defense down. So opposed to her basic attack, which is just like, we're going to clear some positive effects, which could be taunt. This special only affects taunt. So, you know what I'm saying? They're like, it's kind of like, okay, that's like a very specific scenario, and even then it's not like she's not going to clear this on like Black Knight or Miss Marvel. I almost guarantee it. She's going to fill her speed bar, which is also kind of based around raids. 30%, it's nice. I guess we can leave it there. She's healing herself and then the most injured ally for 30% of her max health. So she also has a couple of moments in her kit where she's healing people. Kind of weird that she's doing this as a protector. Honestly, this kind of reads a little more like a controller that she's applying the defense down. If we look at her ultimate, you'll see a lot of controller type of stuff in her kit. So perhaps she could even have her class changed. I don't know if that would bother anyone too much. And then she's going to apply evade to the most injured ally. So like, I guess like one evade, kind of like Tiger, where it's like, who cares? That's not enough evades. Her ultimate, this one I was really surprised by how good this is. She'll attack primary and adjacent targets for 320% piercing, and this is going to apply Disrupted for 2 turns. Like, Disrupted is really good, has a really good effect. Not only that, she's giving defense up and immunity to the entire X-Men team. Like, this is a really good ultimate right here. She's healing people again. Here's that healing. Like, it's kind of weird that a protector doing healing, but like, okay, like she's applying evade to the most injured ally. Like, okay, that's some of the thematic stuff. Not enough evades, but okay. And you know, this is actually really good. Just having that disrupted and the immunity. Immunity is awesome. Always great to get some immunity there. So this ultimate is like really good. It is surprising how competent Kitty Pryde's kit is, and she still is not really relevant in the meta, which is, it's interesting. What I like about Kitty Pryde is some broad synergy. As a whole, she works with X-Men, which is great. This is what I want a lot of the characters to look like. I think they've done a really good job with Kitty Pryde, making her a broad use character with all of the X-Men. So that's awesome. Really good stuff. Her basic attack, pretty good too. Like, she has a very capable basic attack, and when I looked up her stats are actually really good because she just got like a buff not too long ago. One thing that's confusing, I think her utility's spread out. Like, okay, like she's throwing out some evades, she's healing the team a little bit, she's giving stealth to herself, disrupted, immunity, you know, all kinds of, like she's flipping taunt to, what was it, defense down, applying some offense down. Like, it's just like, it's a lot of stuff that Kitty Pryde does in her kit, but I don't think she particularly does anything well. Like, you're never like, oh, okay, like that's what Kitty Pryde does. Like, that's why I should put her on my team. Like, you just kind of put her with the Astonishing X-Men because she had synergy with them. And I just don't think you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, this team needs Kitty Pryde. Like, that's what we're missing. So that's something I want to fix We're going to talk about that with the passive. I think there's some small changes they can make to make Kitty Pryde have like a clear use, but I think that's the reason why we don't see Kitty Pryde being used in the game a lot. Like it's just like okay, like it can apply disrupted and immunity and stuff like that, but like so can a lot of other characters, you know, and Kitty, it's just like I think it's very spread out. Her utility is not very clear, and thereby she does not have a clear role. Like she is technically a protector here, but like she's not really applying that many evades right now, and mostly she's applying negative effects to the enemy team and clearing positive effects. Honestly, she kind of acts more like a controller, so you know she's just kind of confusing. Like you see protector and you kind of expect something with Kitty Pryde, and she does not have that in her kit. Not to say her kit is bad, but I think it would be confusing to a new player. Here's some general stuff I want them to change with the kit. As always, cut the X-Men teams. It's only here a little bit, but I still want to include it. You know, go watch the Cyclops video if you want to hear that rant. I'm always going to go back to the Cyclops video like every single time I'm reviewing a mutant. So I'd just like to see that. Get rid of the astonishing tag. We don't need that anymore. They're out of date. Just pretend it never existed. Nobody's going to be mad about that. And also, I would like the Raid War / Crucible base kit. I think that is incredibly confusing. Like that is excessively confusing to new players. Like that might be another reason why nobody's using Kitty Pryde. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to remember which mode I'm using her in. And like, okay, like she's only going to apply this many evades depending on which mode I'm using her. So I'm not going to use her in raids, but if I'm using her in war, like maybe there's other characters who could do better. Like it's just like so much like there's just so much memorization that goes into Kitty Pryde here, and it's excessively complicated, and it's just because they tacked on the War and Crucible buffs after she fell out of the meta for raids. So you know, let's clean up the house a little bit. Let's get rid of raid, and let's make this kit a little more legible. Here's the big buff I want to see to her. I think this is a small change to her kit that would, I think, rocket her up in utility. And I think this is kind of cool. Right now, if we skip all the way back, let's go all the way back to the passive right here. At best, she's either applying evade to the most injured astonishing X-Men ally on an enemy turn, but like, that's never going to happen because you're not using the astonishing X-Men really. Well, first off, she's not going to be using raids, so this doesn't happen. And then in War and Crucible, otherwise it's only a 20% chance. And then she does apply some evades with her special and ultimate, but again, similar to Tigra, it is not enough. I think it'd be really cool if on an enemy turn, she gives one evade to an adjacent ally. And this would kind of be very thematic to Kitty Pryde, where she can move people through walls too if she's touching them. So it's kind of like these are the people she can grab to her left and her right. And she can only do one at a time to kind of keep it from like, oh my gosh, like she's going to keep, their 2 glass cannons invincible. Like you're gonna have to pick one, so it's not gonna like just keep a bunch of characters completely invulnerable. But this would give a lot of evades out, and it would actually make Kitty Pryde, first off, then she would also be a protector because she would be protecting the people next to her relatively consistently. There would be some dodge synergy. Some of the spider characters play off of that. That could be kind of cool. But I really think thematically, like this is just really engaging. There are not a ton of the spacing in Marvel Strike Force is theoretically important because you want to put the protectors off to the corner, because if they're taunting and somebody hits them with splash damage, if you put them in the center, the splash damage is going to hit the 2 people behind them. But if you put them all the way off to one of the sides, it's only going to hit the person inward by 1. So that's like they're technically placing matters a little bit, but really what it comes down to is you put your tank on the ends, and so that way they're not taking all the hits at the center, which will then spread out to the entire team. But with this change to Kitty Pryde, you would actually be encouraged to place her toward the center, because if she's at the edge of the team, she's only going to apply these evades to one character. Now, this could be beneficial because you're guaranteeing that she's only giving this evade to the one character that she's next to. So if you want to be a little more consistent, this is something you could do, but you're missing out on the chance for her to help out 2 allies by putting her to the side. So I think it actually, like, it's kind of like, this is a little thought-provoking. Like, where do I put Kitty Pryde on the team? I think this would rock her up. Her kit is really decent. She does a lot of stuff, but and her stats are good. We just need a little bit more for Kitty Pryde to be relevant. So anyways, that's my thoughts on Kitty Pryde. Again, I like her in the game. I like that she has Lockheed. That's so cool that they included Lockheed. I'm really happy they did that. I think overall her kit is competent, but it doesn't really feel like Kitty Pryde. Like this could be anybody's kit that I'm reading right now. Like, okay, clearing effects, applying disrupted, like everybody does that. I really think with that passive change, not only would we bring Kitty Pryde's theming into the game, but I think she would have a clear role then. She would be useful in PvP, and it'd just be a really compelling change. If you're too worried it's too powerful, like you can let those of maybe she only does with X-Men allies, only people she trusts, that she could consistently kind of, she needs good teamwork to consistently help them phase through things. I think that would really bring Kitty Pryde to life. Right now she just kind of feels like any other character in the game, and even though she's not necessarily bad, I think she's just kind of forgettable. Nobody puts her on any teams. But I'd be curious what you all think about my thoughts on Kitty Pryde. Hopefully you enjoy them. I have a few more characters coming up for Pride Month, so look forward to that. Feel free to comment if you want to see any other characters be reviewed. I saw somebody comment Daredevil. We're probably going to wait till next month to do Daredevil, partially because he's so sad. Like, Daredevil just is... unlike Kitty Pryde, Daredevil's like absolute garbage, so he's gonna actually take a bit too. We're gonna have to completely change him, but I keep an eye on that, and that rockets these characters up the list because there's like 280. So otherwise I'm kind of like who are we gonna talk about today? So always make sure to comment if you want to see me talk about a character. But I got a few more planned for Pride Month, so I hope you all are looking forward to that. And at the end of the day, what do I really know? Because I'm just a 22-year-old. Y'all have a nice day.